Hey everybody, just wanted to share some info from a session I did with Mike Carroll, better known as Fit for Golf on all major kind of social media platforms. If you don't know Mike's stuff or if you haven't seen it, look it up. He's outstanding at what he does. He's certainly an industry leader as far as fitness in the golf industry goes. That being said, he's also a really good player with some really good delivery numbers. So he's cruising at his play speed here at 117. Ball speed of 166, really good. We do have some swings of his where it's like basically maxed out, some kind of range swings as he calls them. We're going to do a breakdown of that later on. But for right now, I just want to deal with his play swing. So the first thing that we notice is that he moves really well. He's maxing out a lot of his, or he's getting into PGA Tour average and kind of all of these three planes of movement, our horizontals, our torques, and our verticals. But the first thing that we kind of notice that might be suboptimal is that this first vertical spike at 167% of his body weight, it's being located in a really good spot. It allows him time to kind of get airborne, put all of that energy into the golf club. But when he lands and replants and pushes back up, it's 180% of his body weight. So the second time he pushes against the ground, it's actually a bigger spike than the first one. A couple things I don't like about that. One is it's oftentimes a precursor to back injuries. Mike is probably fit enough and stable enough that he's probably not going to suffer from that. But it's also, I want that big high percentage, that peak, if you will, to happen where it's still usable in our golf swing, which means we still have time to get that energy that we've created out to the golf club in order to speed it up. So this spike at 167% of his body weight here just isn't high enough for him to kind of want to get into that 120, 125, or 125 to 130 kind of range. Unfortunately, we weren't able to get to 125, but we did manage to get to 123, 173 ball speed. And the thing, if you see here, 167 becomes 253 at the same spot. So added a huge amount of body weight. So this is effectively 430 pounds at peak, before impact peak, where this one was somewhere kind of south of 300 pounds. At 180%, it's 307. So, we get a lot more force vertically through there, which had a big contribution to this club head speed increase of 6 miles per hour. Now, that being said, we didn't actually attack that through timings of verticals. The thing that we kind of don't like I didn't like the most about Mike's golf swing and how it related to this was how he used his trail foot in his takeaway. So this graph shows what we're doing to create torque, not necessarily how we're moving the plate around. And when this line is above, he is spinning his foot in this direction. Okay? Now what happens is he starts to spin that foot over there using about 5 pounds of force, and then he ramps it up to about 24 pounds, okay, right about here. Now, number one, probably not a heavy enough, a big enough amount. And number two, he doesn't really create any counter movement there. So I prefer that in a takeaway, we see that foot kind of move the other direction during the takeaway, almost acting as a brace. This will oftentimes kind of brace our hips and not allow our hips to open right away, where we actually kind of get them moving a little bit later. And what we can see here is he never does that. So this graph should go underneath this line before it builds. When we were finished here, this one at 123, we see that he actually turns that foot the opposite direction with 13 pounds of torque. Okay, so he's actually gripping the ground and trying to turn his foot this way. Now, the thing about kinetics is you won't see it. Right? You won't see that foot move, but what you will see is that knee kick inward. Okay, that knee kicks in before it moves out. Come back to this original one, and that knee is just going to move away and rotate outward. Okay, so if we can get this moving a little bit more inward first before it moves out, we can create a little bit better stretch through the joint. We can create a little bit more dynamic motion through there. And ultimately what it does is allows him to get this total number up to 30 pounds. Okay, a little bit later than it was before at peak. And a little bit, 6 pounds more, which in this case is about 25% more. From there, he's going to rotate back through, and now at this point, his foot is actually turning back in this direction with 16 pounds of force. Over here, it doesn't really turn back until way after impact, and it's way less. It's 7 pounds of torque. Okay, so he's actually turning that foot now before impact, because as he's trying to really move that hard, it can only go that way for so long, and then it has to kind of almost like rebound. It's like the end of range of motion, and he just kind of rebounds it around the corner. That puts this leg in a way different position. Okay, so I can show you that. And at the same spot, that leg has not turned. Okay, so he's not creating the same amount of torque. When he does this, he gets a little bit more pressure to his lead leg. And at this spot here, where this number where this vertical peaks, right, he's getting a total contribution from his trail foot of 282 newtons, okay, of a total of 1,269. So not a very big percentage of this total number is coming from the trail foot. Here, based on that movement pattern, we're getting a total of 1,914 newtons, and we're getting 538 of them through that trail foot. So he's obviously putting in a lot more force and creating a lot more energy with that trail foot. That allows vertical to peak the place that we want it to peak in. And now you can see that with his lead foot, he's actually creating more just with his lead foot than he was total before with his both feet combined. That is a huge, huge difference. It's a major difference for one day. And we see that. I mean, getting a player like Mike 6 miles per hour from kind of peak to peak of his play speed, I think is a huge gain. And, when we look at it, this is certainly not the first thing I would visit when looking at vertical force. But when we apply a different force here, our body reacts really differently to it. And in Mike's case, when we really got that right foot working better, his verticals went up. This is one of the reasons that it's really difficult to say what people should do using cameras or even 3D to some degree. When we look at forces, we have to be on force plates. We have to collect that data, or else we never know kind of what he was doing. There are some visual clues, like I said, about that knee turn and whatnot, but whether or not it's effective, it really does need to be measured. So find a person in your area that has a swing catalyst system that can kind of look at these stuff. Ideally, we would be dealing with a dual plate system so we can see the contribution from each foot. But if you can't find a golf professional with that, absolutely, the 3D force plate would be great. But go and get your forces measured, because you can learn some really interesting stuff about what might be holding you back from reaching the speeds that you want to. I hope you enjoyed the video. Leave some comments, and hopefully everybody has a great Victoria Day weekend. Take care.